It's what happens.
Nah, I'm out. See ya. Aha, just kidding. Gotcha.
Boop.
Boop. Boop, boop, boop. Did you just play it? Because I didn't hear it.
Oh, I heard nothing.
Oh, man. This is live, man.
I think we should probably talk about women dates, but that's just because I'm a feminist. Can we talk now?
I'm Alton.
And I'm Barbara. All pathetic, like.
It's good to be back.
I think we were brilliant, but I kind of want to know why Alton missed it. So, what'd you do? Where'd you go?
Oh yeah, so I just was spending some time in Colorado. It was the first time my wife went with me on an elk hunt, which my elk hunts, if anyone listened last year, don't always go as planned. So last year I ended up getting flown off of the mountain in a helicopter. Tune into episode ABC that I can't remember for that one. But yeah, so this year it was really hot and we had a good time hunting. I had one opportunity to shoot an elk, but couldn't close the deal. So too bad. So I went and cried myself in Pagosa Springs in the hot springs. If you haven't done that, it's awesome. So yeah, licked my wounds and here we are back in podcast land.
So would Heather go with you again? Was it fun enough for that?
She said that she would prefer a big outfitter tent. It's awesome. And I said, yeah, but you know how much those cost? And she's like, how much? And I'm like, $4,000 to $6,000. And she was like, if you want me to come back, that's what we're gonna have to do. Like, yeah, we should just hike in on horses. And I'm like, well, that's not really hiking. So yeah, it was a good time though.
Okay.
We were roughing it.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
All right, so they probably didn't hear anything I said. I think my mic was not working too well. So, oh well.
One time there was a podcast, and then we started it, and
yeah,
that's all good.
Still learning it all. But yes, today's show's about mandates. We did the 25th Amendment the last time, and during that, the president came out and said he wanted to mandate vaccines. So we're going to cover that today. And Alton, once again, thanks for coming back for once, rather than being star-flighted out. So, spoiler alert, if you didn't go back and watch that episode, you're going to need to. It was a crazy story. In fact, we even posted the video that Alton made of that trip. So
that's right.
So you definitely have to go back and check that out. I guess let's start out. The original idea of this podcast was more for the fact that they have been mandating masks left and right. We went through this launching of school again for our kids. Of course, Barb, you kept your kids at home, so hopefully you didn't mandate them wearing masks, but
it's been uncomfortable, but I've gotten them to do it. So, we're good. Stay home, stay safe, stay masked. Don't breathe. Stop that.
I thought that we were trying to get you a date, John.
Oh, mandate, huh? You're going to make me.
Is that not what this is about? All these notes, too. All right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of puns that can happen about this. I mean, you mentioned in the intro, and the president dropped the bomb. And I'm like, Now, which one are we talking about? Like, you kind of have to specify these days. Like, who
Oh
are we
no.
bombing? Oh yeah, the American people. That's right.
Oh, she's going after him just straight from the get-go. Yeah, no. So I guess one of the bigger things here in Texas, you know, Greg Abbott early on, he said you can't mandate vaccines to anyone in the government attached to it. But unfortunately, we've talked about it. Businesses can mandate you get the vaccine in order to keep your job. And so that's been all over the news. But masks were the bigger thing because we were starting to kick off all the schools, and the governor said that no school could mandate the kids wear a mask, or even the workers, because they're still classified as government or state workers. And that quickly kicked up. In fact, it was that Friday before school started, a lot of the different school districts around us in particular in Austin were trying to mandate that they were still going to do it despite the governor's orders, and that they were going to take it to court. So that got nasty really quick. In fact, Alton, how did you and your family handle that debacle?
What do you mean? How did we handle it?
Did you go any school board meetings? Did you go to the principal? Did you still wear masks? Like, what happened for y'all?
No, man, I'm not trying to deal with those people. Like with our school, like they kept sending stuff out, you know, they're like encouraging it, just saying that they're not going to enforce it. And even most recently, we've gotten this letter saying, if we would like to, if we would like the staff specifically to not tell our children to wear a mask, then we can fill out a form and send that. So, which was kind of weird. And so part of me is like, hey, look, this is cool. You know, there's a voice of people that are saying, hey, we don't want you to be telling our kids to wear a mask. But then the cynical side of me is like, okay, now what list is that going to put me on? But anyway.
You're not wrong, though. I mean, we should probably clarify. This is Texas that we're talking about, because I would say that that's not typical. Like in Washington State, students are required to wear masks. Staff are required to wear masks. In fact, our governor went so far as to require it in charter schools and private schools, which is kind of unheard of. It's not even a state school. So I'm not sure where he... Yeah.
My I talked to my children in the 7th grade, and I'm like, how many kids are actually wearing masks? And at one point they were like 95%. So I don't know if that was them just feeling like a lot of kids were doing it, or it was actually 95%. But like, I'm watching them all leave school now, and like, here's a dad, no mask, walking down the middle of the street, kid outside wearing a mask, you know? So, and I just noticed that, like, we've gone to several volleyball games. We've gone to several, cross country meets, and like almost no one's wearing them. So it's like kind of confusing to me, the discrepancy, I guess, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's funny is none of our kids wore masks. In fact, we bought buttons for my son, because he's got some issues medically. But we bought some buttons, and it was like, I'm not wearing a mask for medical reasons, so I'd appreciate you being nice. And it was like, okay. So we put that on him. And then we actually went to several school board meetings. So what was crazy is my wife actually, you pissed off Mama Bear is what happened. And she showed up at one of the board meetings, and they only gave us 60 seconds to speak. And she actually got up in front of the board, and she's like, look, y'all don't know what it's like for each individual. You should not be mandating mask for any of us, period. And those kids that are ADHD, ADD, all these different disorders were at a disadvantage last year. And if you continue to push it for this year, they're going to be at an even more disadvantage. And that's a form of discrimination. I don't care what you want to argue with. And then she went on to say that, you know, if you're going to tell me how to deal with my health, well, then guess what? You can't have Diet Coke and you can't eat McDonald's anymore. There's studies that show that that's bad for you. And she ended with that. And I mean, they actually told us we could not applaud, scream, yell, nothing. And, you know, they did the applause via the sign language. But then they started to lose control. And so they were like, no, y'all were doing so good.
Applause via the sign language? What is that?
Where they shake their hands? You've never seen that? That's sign language.
Jazz
hands.
Yes,
Like,
jazz
okay,
hands.
all right, that's vivid. I feel like though, I mean, like you're bringing up, or she brought up a really good point that, you know, at least where we are in America, theoretically, we are governed by the Constitution, right? So the whole question of who gets to say, who gets to decide what I do with my health, right? I feel like that's underlying all of this. Can it still be an emergency if we're almost 2 years in? Because that's what everyone's hiding behind, right? It's emergency powers. Because otherwise, where in the world do we get off thinking that it's okay for the state to determine what you put on your face, whether or not you eat McDonald's, or, you know, we're headed into this conversation about mandating vaccines. I think we have a constitutional problem here. And I think we as citizens have a constitutional problem because we have so given up being educated about what the Constitution actually means. That we need to know the history behind this. The history matters. The way that we are rampantly redefining words so that they fit the political agenda, that's a problem, right? So I would say that, you know, we as the citizens have created this mess of thinking that it makes total sense for the government to tell me that I can't breathe out my nose. Like,
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I think that you know, we're seeing fear run rampant due to a lot of people not taking care of their health to begin with, not making it a focus. And now that there's an issue, we're panicking and wanting to be told what to do. And I think generally American people try to be amenable, like we try to obey the laws. You know, that's one of the things that a friend of mine said, like, hey, man, you know, there's a big difference between driving in Mexico and driving in the United States. And I'm like, well, how so? And he's like, well, in the United States, you kind of expect people to stop at a stop sign. It's like in Mexico, you kind of slow down and you watch. Like, are they or are they not? He's like, but everybody does it. So, you know, so you just kind of look and watch and we're good. Right. So I think that generally people in the United States, like we there's this idea of like, we want to be happy, we want to obey, and I feel like the government's taking advantage of that. And I think that if you look at Australia, they're like further down the line. They're like, yeah, utopian society. We don't need guns. We're just going to be nice. And it's great. Look, crime rates just plummeting. And then boom, COVID hits. And now it's like, you can't go outside. You can't drive your car. We're telling you everything. And there's all these protests going around the world of, you know, vaccine protests, like forget the mask, but the vaccine is like another level, even where people who have the vaccine, love the vaccine, want you to get the vaccine, are sitting there going, whoa, you can't tell anybody to do this. This is nuts. And so I think a lot of people are waking up to that. I think that most of the media is trying to cancel it, right? You look at Joe Rogan. He said something other than get a vaccine. He said, hey, look, here's all these things that I did to get rid of COVID and I'm fine and I'm feeling great. CNN's like, look at this idiot taking horse dewormer to where Joe Rogan's suing them, right? So we have a big problem that it's not even that we're having something mandated. We're having something mandated that is questionable. And we have many sources, if you're willing to look, of other routes to take to accomplish the same thing without a vaccine. Well, man, ivermectin, here we go, getting canceled, y'all. Static. You know, you say that word, you're immediately canceled, ostracized, especially as a doctor, and because nobody's making any money. And that is like the huge problem with me. Like, I totally agree with Barbara, where she's talking about the Constitution, but then it's just like, if that wasn't enough for you, like, follow the money. and look at how government is trying to force you to how to take care of your health, which is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not even taking care of your health. I know that's the premise. What's kind of getting me unnerved, I'm not opposed to vaccines as a concept.
Right.
I don't understand how we can say, oh no, it's safe and effective, and at the same time insist that the coronavirus is so novel, we know nothing about it, but we're absolutely sure that this is safe. Couldn't be a problem.
Okay, so I actually, sorry, I wanted to catch you on this. I actually had a doctor today say that, well, the vaccine, the type of formula that they're using has been around for 20 years. And of course, my response is, well, yeah, but have they actually been forced to give it to a multitude of people? And what were the side effects?
Like, to me, it doesn't matter if it's safe and effective.
Yep, same here.
It's
the fact that it's
mandate it. Now, somebody be like, okay, Alton, you and your stupid freedoms. Okay. Noted. Noted. Right.
Can't believe you want those still.
That's what Schwarzenegger said, right? Like, that's how he feels. I understand that, right? Like, why should my freedom cause other people to die? I understand where that's coming from. And I do respect that to an extent, but I don't see how government has any role at all. I don't see how government has any role at all in telling us what we should be putting in our body. And I think that right now it's a vaccine because we're in a pandemic. But, and I'll stop, but like, look at the war on drugs. You know what I mean? People have tried to mandate you can't drink alcohol. They've banned cannabis. Now it's trying to come back. It's like people draw the line when you start saying, hey, put this in your body or don't put this in your body. People go, who are you? Right? If I want to do cocaine, like, I'm going to find out. I don't care that it's illegal. Who do you know who's not doing cocaine because it's illegal?
I wonder if we can also look at the economic side of this, because I think we've talked in the past about the vaccine and whether or not we think that it's, medically advisable, and so we should go back and look at that show. I'm wondering what you guys think about the government dictating to businesses what they must require of their employees, because in Biden's I'm trying to think of a really polite way to put it. In Biden's mandate, there you go, his latest vaccination push. So all federal employees, federal contractors, healthcare workers at facilities that receive federal funding, which is almost all of them. Come on. They have to show proof of vaccination. There's no option for testing. You also have workers, any business that's got, I believe it's 100 employees or more.
Yeah.
They're required to provide proof of vaccination or submit to weekly COVID testing. So we're now solidly in the private sector as well. Anyone that has,
right.
What do you guys think of it?
Like,
I mean, this
where
is now,
where in the Constitution does it say that that is government's role? Because like, I'm looking down here at the border right now with all the people storming it, and when I read the Constitution and what the roles are for the government, it's kind of like protect us as a sovereign nation from
so
that.
like that border might have been a good
spot. So
Yeah.
that should be something that we should be focusing on. I mean, and I'm honestly saying this, maybe I need to go back and reread it, but I don't read anywhere where, a president needs to be telling me what to put in my body and what not to, or as a business owner, how to run it.
What's required of your
those mandates that you're talking about really are going to suck for HR, right? Because technically they still have exemptions for religious or medical purposes. Of course, the medical ones are kind of easy to find out, right? You send me a doctor's note that you received that says you're exempt, and that's it. But where are we going to keep track of this? Where are we supposed to, send this report to on a daily basis? Is this going to be another one of those like EEOC reports that you have to do if you have over X amount of people per company?
Just check the international database.
But then on top of that, I've been reading up on some of what they want HR to do in these companies, and it's like, you have to investigate. If somebody says, I want to take a religious exemption, they want you to investigate. They want to make sure
No
that your
way.
claim, they want to make sure your claim is legit. But the problem is even in some of the examples they've given, take, for example, a vegetarian, right? They don't have a religious view towards it, but it is viewed as a religious belief.
Yeah, like your morals, right?
Right.
Your
So
scruples
how are you
or
supposed
whatever.
to really make sure that it's a religious belief if someone's like, I'm scared of this, or I don't want to put
You have
stuff
to,
in my body that hasn't been proven. Like, I mean,
So you have
Like-
to check and make sure they haven't eaten a cheeseburger in the last 8 months or something.
Yeah, we're
Like, liar.
give me
you're
a
not
hair
religious about it.
sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Like, and here's the thing, and I want to be clear on this. When we had our conversation about discrimination as a business owner, I said the business owner should be able to hire who they want and fire who they want. I mean, I just think that karma, whatever law of the universe, it's gonna work itself out, right? If they're being stupid, it's gonna solve itself. I'm all in on a business owner saying, if you want to work for me, I need you to get vaccinated. Like, I think that this is the way that we're going to beat this. And so as a business owner, I don't want to be working around you if you're unvaccinated. And I'm sorry if that doesn't work. Here's a severance package. Good luck. I'll help you get a job. But man, as soon as the government comes in, I'm just flipping 180 degrees.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, who are you?
well, but
yeah, totally
what's
agree.
really funny though is if you go back to before COVID, companies would talk about like flu vaccines. They would encourage you to get it,
Sure.
but they
sure.
never once said, "Hey, you have to get it or else." You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's nuts. The concept is insane to me. No one has ever, like, look at history.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm with you that the businesses need to be allowed that freedom, but it means that as the employees need to be allowed the freedom to have somewhere else they can go. You can't have the government saying there's nowhere you can work unless you get vaccinated. Like that's its own thing, which I think is feeding the, what do you call it, the vaccinated rage. Unvaccinated rage. There's a lot. I mean, this probably deserves its own show, but the this us versus them mentality. This is not about health. Like all this talk about doing it for my neighbor, but doggone it if my neighbor is not vaccinated. Like they are the problem and they deserve every death that they bring upon their own. Like, okay, calm down.
2 days ago, Times had a thing come out, and my wife sent it to me. And it was back to the mask deal and whether you're doing it for yourself or for your neighbor. And they mentioned in there that, don't worry about whether they're wearing it or not. If you're wearing it, you're protecting yourself some.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they're back to, hey, you're wearing it for yourself again.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
It's because, and it just goes back to people don't think for themselves. They don't research it for themselves. They take whatever pill is presented and they just swallow it and they feel good for it. And this is why we're having this podcast. I was having this conversation today saying, I wish we could discuss these hard topics without becoming enemies. And I think that our nation is really lacking that ability to disagree and have a real conversation. And he said, yeah, I was reading this article. This woman was talking about, and she was like, so many cases, whatever. And so he responded, well, what are you defining as a case? And she was like, oh, you're just trying to be argumentative and all of these things. And he's like, honestly, you said cases. I'm legitimately asking, how do we define a case? Is it, someone was
hospitalized,
exposed,
someone got it,
someone
positive test.
had one little like viral thing on them, or, all the way down the spectrum of they were sick, they were hospitalized, or they died. Like, where are we at here? She's like, okay, well, if you're being legit, like, let's look at this. They look at this article and they're like doing some research that referenced this other article. Anyway, I said all of that to say they were defining cases when they were asking people, have you had any of these symptoms, right? Any of these COVID symptoms, which we
can
know
be
could
like
be muscle
headache.
aches, headaches, sinus pressure. And if they said yes to any of those, that was counted as a case.
What?
Now, had you not asked the question, done the research, spent all of this time, trying to vet this out, then you wouldn't understand. Case, you would just make this quick assumption. Oh, Case, that's probably someone testing positive.
Or
No.
someone that died.
Or someone
right?
that
Like,
died.
It's that many deaths. Yeah.
But no, in fact, it's just, no, I had a headache. I mean, I'm sure that some of them were legit, but it just goes back to these numbers and then being manipulated for whatever someone wants who's in power. And I think that that's where we're at, and that we have to be diligent to have honest conversations so that we can actually learn what's really going, instead of making these assumptions and then these judgments for each other. Because the more divided we are, I think the harder it will be to, get through this.
So get ready, though, because the next mandate's going to be children getting the vaccine in order to be in school. I mean, that is coming. But I will say this, if you're a statistic freak like me, there has only been 318 deaths the last time I checked of kids 5 to 11 that have died from COVID this whole time. And remind you, there's over 9,000 or 12,000 deaths from taking the vaccine. What
For that same age, or is that
no?
that's
Well,
the whole...
that's the whole thing. I haven't gotten a breakdown as to what age range, but
Yeah, well, it's got to be. Vaccines haven't been going to kids younger than 12, so it's. But I mean,
Yeah.
your point is fair. Like, this is not the dangerous group of people. Like,
Right.
they're not the ones that are.
right,
Getting
they
it.
have a 0.0001% chance, I believe, is what it is,
Yeah.
of actually dying from it. They
And I
might
think
get
even-
sick from it, but
If that, even less than. Okay, so there's someone very close to me that recently the whole family had COVID, including like right down to their newborn, right, 4 months old. Newsflash, they're fine. It's cold. Like, it felt like a cold for them, and I'm not saying it does for everyone, but I think those it needs to be considered.
sure.
This
But
is a shameless plug to the fact that I've now been with you guys for a year, and y'all ought to go back and listen to that show about why you should homeschool, because if that's coming up, it's gonna get real relevant real fast.
yes,
Yeah,
it could be.
I'm trying to look at the
Happy 1 year, by
let
the
me
way.
see.
Thank you.
So
Alton's obviously sick of you, but I'm glad you're here.
I know he's not even paying attention. There's no card. There's
well, here's the thing. I'm trying to do some fact checking here. Okay, so
Well,
as of today,
while
I'm-
you're doing that, real quick, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe, and the bell icon that you see there on the screen, because you definitely have missed out on some things in the past. Hit me with it, Alton.
no pressure.
I am agreeing with your
Wait, I got to record this. Make sure you say that again.
I'm
John,
agreeing with your
you're right.
stat about COVID deaths. I was trying to pull up the gun violence in Chicago, but basically, let me see.
Yes. The gun violence has killed more kids than COVID has.
Yeah, like I'm having trouble pulling the stat, but like this is something on USA Today. It said that during the COVID-19 pandemic, so the same time that we're talking about the 374 children have died from COVID, which personally I'm questioning that just because, but it said 1,300 were killed in that same time by guns.
In Chicago alone,
I mean, they're trying to
Or
make
is
me
that-
pay on USA Today.
Yeah. Yeah.
of course they are.
They've been making a big
But-
deal about that today because the kid death rate in Chicago due to
Right. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like again, echoing your sentiments, we have to question: is this a health thing?
But you know what's
Now,
horrible? They're going to turn this into gun control. It's not actually going to prove that maybe COVID is not as scary as it's going to.
No, they're trying to dismantle the police is the problem.
Okay.
anyway, when you look at those stats, right, like 375, this is bad, right? Like, I agree. But when you start looking at 1,300 kids not shot, this is dead, right? Kids dead
Yeah.
from gun. I mean, now some people would look at that and say, well, we need to mandate gun control. And I'm like, well, I don't think that fixes the problem. Yeah, 5,100 kids shot, 1,300 killed during COVID-19.
That's the strictest gun control city in the U.S.
Yeah, but the thing is, what we're talking about mandates, should we do it? Like, we have to understand, like, especially when you start talking about kids, I think we have to really look at what's going on, and then temper that against like freedom, in my opinion, and who should be calling the shots.
Yeah, I agree. So really the question's going to be now, because we're going to do our deciding factor now, which is going to be, should we have mandates? Why or why not? So don't just tell me no. All right, here we go.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
All right, Alton, we're going to let you take the last one again, since you love to end the show good for us. But I've got to say, obviously this is probably no surprise, but I disagree with any mandate, whether it's the mask or the vaccine. I think everybody should be able to make up their own choice. I think we've taken this way too far. We've forgotten what freedoms our nation was built on. And, people are going to go back and say, well, we had polio outbreak. This is a big phenom that's going on right now. We've got to do everything possible. Guys, there's going to be stupid people out there doing stupid stuff the rest of your life. I mean, yes, I get there's kids that go to school with a cough that maybe shouldn't be going to school with a cough, but that's been going on for decades. So your kid has either caught the flu or built up his immune system being around other kids. Yes, it can obviously spread a lot, but let me give you another example of what everybody thought was going to happen that didn't happen. So Fauci and them said that the football games were going to be big super spreaders, close Texas stadium down. We shouldn't have sellout crowds. Shut A&M down. Guess what? CDC came back just this week and said, oh, we were wrong. They were not super spreaders, and things are still good being over 2 weeks into the college football season. So, guys, we don't know enough, and clearly the doctors are divided both on vaccines or masks. So why are you going to overstep and tell us that we have to do something that you still don't know the answer to? There's still people out there saying that these vaccines are safe and great. Okay, they may be safe for certain people under certain situations. You still cannot guarantee me that if I give that to my daughter, she gets pregnant 10 years from now, that kid's not missing an ear or something. I mean, you don't know everything yet. So don't tell me what I have to do, because I don't think the risk or the reward is worth the risk.
Boom. Okay. I'm going to piggyback off of that.
No, don't take my ideas. You got to do something completely different.
Totally original.
You're the liberal
totally
one today. Come on, do it.
That was a joke. That was satirical. That was not. Yeah, okay. This is actually going to turn into Barb's book review hour, because I think if you are listening, and John, for you, there is an audiobook version of this.
Yes.
Absolutely no excuse to not go and get this right now. You need
1984.
to go read Slaying Leviathan by Glenn Sunshine. His name is awesome.
Glenn Sunshine.
Yeah, Slaying Leviathan is the book that you absolutely need to listen to or read, because we can quibble about whether or not these are safe, about whether or not COVID is as bad as we thought it was, all of these minutia issues, right? Because that's really what they are. Like, you can throw statistics back and forth at each other, and we don't convince anyone. We're living in an era of the expert, where you can have an expert say whatever you want. But as Americans, this goes back down to you need to relearn what it means to be American. You need to relearn civics and to go back and figure out, what did it actually mean? Why do we have in the Constitution as an unalienable right to life?
Did you say alien?
Unalienable. Yeah.
Oh.
Look back at why that's there. There's a history behind it. I found that book really helpful. And that is my why for why I don't think that mandates, not only do I not think they're helpful, I don't think that it's legal. I don't think it's constitutional, because we do live within a society. We do have an obligation to not do harm to the person next to us. Because these vaccines are experimental, you as a citizen should have the right to choose to run the experiment on yourself. That's fine. You can't force an experiment onto another person. Your rights stop at the other guy's nose. And I would say that government has gotten so big that we're not even aware that our nose has been trod upon. So, Slang Leviathan, Glenn Sunshine, go.
Real quick before you hit your point, Alton, do y'all kind of feel extremely angry with the fact that these rights are basically being taken away? Has that gotten you extra angry?
It did at one point. What I've realized, it made me go back and do a lot of the reading and the history. And what I found fascinating is that while, yes, I think the founding fathers would be disgusted at what's happening, they would not have been surprised. The Constitution was written
That's a good way
because
to put
they
it.
knew this was going to happen, because this has happened throughout history. And that's why shame on us for not knowing the history. But it's written in such a way to be overthrown when the government gets too big. It's that way by design.
So I feel like for this next statement I'm about to give, I'm going to get a whole lot of heat for, but I honestly
Evie's already on fire.
We know you don't read, so it's okay. You haven't read the Constitution.
No, I feel like when I look back at the Black Lives Matter movement with all the rioting and everything, where they want to be heard and everything, I got that urge the other day where it was like, I want to kick down somebody's door for them trying to take away our rights, and they're still trying and they're not stopping. And when is this ever going to end? And it's like, oh man, I'm kind of I better shut up and back off or calm down something, man. I mean,
I think that there is a growing number of people. This is what I've always said, that there are people who are loud about their feelings. They're loud on social media. They're loud people telling you how everything is. Then there are people who don't say a lot, but it doesn't mean that they don't have opinions. It doesn't mean that they don't have feelings about things. And if you think about like a lot of the, let's just call them, because I'm not thinking of a better term, conservative views, they've got off Facebook, they've got off Instagram, or they've been kicked off or shadow banned, right? So that you can't hear them anymore, but they exist in the real world. Okay. And so when we start talking about getting rights taken away, especially mandating these things, I just encourage everyone to look at all the protests around the world. And my interpretation of the people who are unwilling to have their rights destroyed will cause a very large problem for the people who are trying to take them. This is my belief. I mean, you look at all the stormtroopers in Australia, and I think that's, and I posted about this on Facebook, and people are like, Alton, you're crazy. You think that you're oppressed. You don't know anything. Like, I can't read and see what's going on in other countries, right? So I think that for me, to answer the question, do I agree with them? No, I don't agree with them. But I'm kind of in this crazy land where, yes, I was born in Texas. I'm proud to be an American. There's no document that gave me permission to have rights. I think that the Constitution is correct in saying that God gave us rights to be human, to be alive, right? I don't care what country, nation, border I cross, that doesn't affect that, that person in Canada is a human, and that person in Mexico is a human, and they have certain rights that I just can't violate as another human. And so it doesn't bother me when some goofball pencil whips some new mandate, because I don't care. I'm not going to go get the shot because you said so. And I think that more people need to be responsible and thinking for themselves. But again, like Barbara pointed out so well, like look back at history. This is what happens. People want to be led. No one wants to think. No one wants to do the hard work. You know, I want to be healthy, but I don't want to exercise. I want to be healthy, but I want to eat ice cream all the time. Right? These are just, it's human nature, and it has to correct itself. But just again, look back. I mean, you've got prohibition. You've got all of these things that government have said, oh, you can't do. And the people are just like, nope, we're going to do it. And so I just think that you can't fight human nature. And when you start saying you have to do this to your body, even people who are all pro-government, you know, I think you're drawing the line, because it's like, whoa. But yeah, so that's my thing. Like, no way. And I don't need to say why. That was my point. Like, I don't need to have a reason. It's that simple. You know, like, no, you can't tell me what I'm going to put in my body or my child. Tripping.
What was that you said to me earlier? Man, you don't know how close you are to death right now. Tell me I'm going to do something.
Yeah. And I recognize that I'm a little bit crazy, but that's my point. Like, I hope that the other people who are going to like force me to wear a mask and are going to like, I mean, look, they're doing it in other countries where they kick in your door and like, hey, you're supposed to be here. You're locked down. Hey, you got to get this vaccine here. We're going to give it to you. I just hope that they're as prepared to be on that side of history, because I'm prepared to be on the other side.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you are not watching this live and commenting on our YouTube page, then you are missing out, guys. Make sure that you join us every time, because this is some of those conversations where, man, we could really use your input. And
we can't take it back. I can't ask John to edit out that stupid 17 things that I said.
Exactly. Make sure you follow us on social media, and then you can also tell us some fun stuff. I think Barb gave up on social media. Is that right? They kicked you off, or what?
I was getting stuff canceled, but no, I just started realizing, like, every time that I would go and look, I'm like, I leave feeling sort of like, blah. So instead I've picked up audiobooks as a habit, and I'm loving it. I don't miss social media. Sorry, guys.
Man, we used to get so many fun stories when you were on social media.
I know.
Can't send Barbara photos anymore. Shoot.
Yep. Sorry. It's got to be snail mail.
Well,
put her address in the description.
Apparently, it's not all that hard to find. That's its own story, though.
What? Real? Okay. Well.
Yeah, it's not hard to find someone's address on the internet.
Yeah, apparently.
The dark web.
All
no,
right.
not even on the dark web. Just like sitting there. It's really easy to find. So.
Google her. You'll find her. If not, call me and I'll tell you. All right, guys. Well, it was fun. And we don't yet know what our next show is going to be. So if you have suggestions, make sure you hit us up on our website, thedecidingfactorpodcast.com, and give us your ideas. Or you can tell us to quit too. That's fine. And we'll see y'all next time.
Listen.
I'm sure we'll listen. All right, guys. It was great. Thanks for joining. Everyone, say bye.
Peace.
Bye.
This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.